Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Do you want me to report on that? Yes.
All right. Wonderful, wonderful. Good evening, everyone. Good late afternoon. I'm Dr. Stephen Holt with Tri Excellence, and we facilitate the Historic Albina Advisory Board. Normally, you see the lovely Erica Warren, who is in the midst of transitions and will be joining us as we do what we do tonight. Glad you are here. I want to welcome the Historic Albina Advisory Board members that are in the space. Apologize for the delay. We were waiting for others to join us, but we're going to get going and do what we can do together tonight. So again, welcome into the space and welcome HAAB members and those who are here to help us work through our time tonight. We've got a lively agenda and it's going to be fun. It's going to be a time, it's going to be a hoop man we're going to have tonight. Don't even ask me what that is. I have no idea. For public comment tonight, let me give you the number for people who would want to call in and participate. You will see it again in just a few moments, but I'm going to give it to you verbally. It is 971-247-1195. You want to call in. It is also if you want to join the meeting, here's the code. It is 869-3533-4143. You want to join via Zoom. I'll give it to you again. If you'd like to join via Zoom, it is 869-3533-4143. And then the passcode is 4454. I'm 445546 or 445546. Let's go over the agenda for tonight. The agenda is, as you see, thank you. We're going to go over our principles of agreement, public comments, project updates, some design updates, and then some real exciting conversations around the reconnecting communities, neighborhood grant. And we're going to, the goal is to adopt the HAAB revised charter tonight, and then we'll talk about our next steps. Enter our HAAB members. Welcome to this evening. Thank you for being here.
We started on time.
Yeah, started on time-ish. Yeah, the meeting was start was 4:13, just to highlight it. But welcome, good to see you, everyone. Hi, how are you? Thank you. Yeah, Dr. Holt is facilitating tonight. Excuse us. Yeah. Let's go over our principles of agreement. You've seen these before, and Erica usually just kind of highlights them. I want to spend a little moment around them for this meeting and then our after meeting, because we're going to use these same principles. Your voice matters. And that means we really want to hear from you. And this group, there's no issue with that. You usually speak up and you engage and lean in. We appreciate that. It also means that we want to make sure that people have the opportunity for their voice to be heard. So we're not going to overspeak one another. We're going to respect the opportunity of the voice being communicated. If you overspeak, I will interrupt your overspeaking so that we don't disrespect someone who is speaking. I want to make sure we're hearing people and giving them that opportunity. Second principle, be authentic and genuine. Again, not an issue for this group. You bring yourself into this space, and that's what we expect and value. Listen for understanding that the goal is, as someone is sharing and thinking, that we're leaning in to capture, not just preparing to respond, which often happens. We want to deal with the issues, not people. And as that's happening, again, part of our robust discussion is certainly in the second session, is we're going to experience some discomfort. That's part of growth. It's part of what happens. As we do, we ask you to remain respectfully engaged and then accept and expect non-closure. We're not going to solve everything tonight, and that's okay. So, next slide, please. Public comment. We received, I think, 3, or was it 4?
Yeah, we had 3 who wrote in or left voice messages, and we do have some callers in the queue wanting to provide live public comment.
Awesome. So before I give it to Natalie, you see the numbers for those who are in the queue, who want to provide live comment. A couple of instructions. In order to raise your hand, of course, you have to dial 9, and to unmute, you will dial 6. Once you unmute and your name is identified, we're going to ask you to identify your name. You will have 2 minutes to share your comment. 2 minutes to share your comment, at the end of which you will hear a timer. And then if you continue, we will mute on this end. Not to be rude or dismissive, we want to be thoughtful, responsible, and continue to create space for everyone to engage. So if you will help us to operate in that manner, we will certainly appreciate it. Natalie. In your hands.
Thank you, Dr. Holt. I will go ahead and admit our first commenter into the meeting space. Yes.
How much time do you allow agenda for this program?
Hello. You know, on this phone, this whole time, all it's done is played music and not what is going on in the meeting. I'm calling on citizen comment. My name is Sharon Nassett, and I am calling today to thank you for being on this committee and tell you that I'm with thirdbridgenow.org, and we have provided you written information on our alignment of I-5 and I-84, which was accepted into the I-5 partnership and has been accepted into the 2023 Create the Future Design Contest. Please vote on it and have the opportunity to see what you are not seeing from our departments of transportation, and they have been hiding from you. I am also asking that your meetings stop being virtual in this community. Everybody else has gone live over a year ago or so. Offering both is fine, but this is inappropriate. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment.
Yeah, my concern is that, like you say, you have 5 minutes allotted for our agenda for this time on time. What if we had a whole bunch of, what if we had 5 or 10 people that come in? And even with 4 people, they only get a minute and 15 seconds.
We wouldn't stop. I personally would not cut off however many people who would connect to the space. We're not going to talk.
So much time that if we have fewer people, then they should be allowed to speak maybe a little bit longer. That's my concern.
I appreciate that.
Get your thoughts across sometimes in 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Our next caller.
We do have multiple screens. I'm sharing this time for just a moment. Okay, caller with the phone number ending in 5424. You're welcome to unmute yourself and speak your comment. And to unmute yourself, dial *6. Caller with the phone number ending in 4524. 4524. Caller with the phone number ending in 4524. If you could please dial *6, it will unmute yourself, and you can provide your comment. Caller with the phone number ending in 4524. We cannot hear you. If you're trying to speak, I think you are muted in the Zoom platform. If you can dial *6, you can unmute yourself that way. Might have to come back to them. And that is everyone we have in the queue at this time.
I do see a hand raise.
And that was Miss Sharon, Nassett.
Okay.
we heard from.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
You can, please join us on the live stream on YouTube. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. We will continue in our agenda. If we can go back to our slideshow, please.
But what was the comment that the lady said? I couldn't quite catch up when she said she was upset about. And we should stop doing about the public live versus public or something. What was she saying? That comment that the lady was making about us not being live?
She was saying that our meetings are, we have a hybrid in-person and virtual, but we're all in person, that basically people should be able to be in person.
Okay.
Thank you. Next slide, please, then. We're gonna go to our project updates, and I want to welcome Erica McAlpin, who is our equity director for the Oregon Department of Transportation, who will be sharing some information. Ms. McAlpin.
Thank you so much, Dr. Holt. Good evening, everybody. And I am bringing you greetings from Alabama, or otherwise I would be there in person tonight. But I want to give you these project updates on behalf of Megan Channel, who is on vacation. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So the work plan, what we're going to focus on in terms of project updates are the work plan focus areas and the timeline. So we want to complete the environmental review process, advance early work packages A and B to 100% design, advance early work package C toward final design, and then advance main construction package to 30% design. And these are all the things that our current funding allows us to do, as we told you the last time. And our work over the next couple of years will focus on these items, along with positioning the project for funding.
Thank you. You're not going away. You'll be engaged
No, I'm not going
tonight. You've been several updates and insights. And we're gonna go through the information kind of collectively, and then questions or comments at the end will be opened up. If you take a look, you see the updated HAAB meeting schedule. The orange highlights the meeting for the whole Historic Alabama Advisory Board. The kind of teal identifies the community framework work sessions. And then the board meeting, of course, and highway cover workshops. So the meetings are being spread out, but there are opportunities to engage every month. In light of that, there's a possibility to meet on Tuesdays. So to do some more concentrated work and engaged work on Tuesdays, and the proposal at hand is to meet for those who are interested on a second Tuesday or a fourth Tuesday of each month. The city, we understand city partners are more available on Tuesdays than on Thursdays. Is that good? Is that, no? Yes? No? Oh, you make it work. So it can be either or.
Some of us are available.
In general, either day can work, Tuesday or Thursday. Is there a preference from the historic advisory for Tuesday or Thursday?
I'd say Tuesday, one Thursday a month is our Williams Muscle Day. From 5 to, or from 4 to 6.
Which Tuesday?
Last, the third Thursday.
Third Thursday, okay. So Tuesdays are preference for you. Okay. Second and fourth, preference at all?
Tuesday
Tuesday?
work for me. Day for a long day there.
I can.
You can make Tuesday work, sir?
Same way, and it gives more time to be out job or something else.
Got you. Tuesday,
I'm good.
good for Tuesday, and let's go to those who are hybrid with us. Scrum, Tuesday. Stop sharing for a second. And let me ask, Ms. Goodlow, Tuesdays work for you? And did we say second or fourth Tuesday, or did we not? We just said Tuesday.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
For a meeting, for a historic outbound advisory board to do some deeper dive or more frequent engagements, would a Tuesday, second or fourth Tuesday work for you during the month?
Fourth Tuesday.
For what time period or what month or?
It is, if we look at the schedule that was outlined, there will be not as frequent meetings for the entire board as it has been. There are going to be some other opportunities to engage around other items. We'll be talking a little more about that tonight. But there's a possibility of, for continuity's sake, meeting on Tuesdays on a monthly basis. And there we'll be talking about some of those other items to be covering.
And then one last question, are we talking the same time of day? So 4 o'clock or 4:30?
Yes.
Well, at this point, and I'm going to answer this in a long way. Tuesdays, regardless of what day of the week or which week it is, seem to work okay. The 4 o'clock time is problematic, probably for the next couple of months, because I'm the only executive leader at the Housing Bureau as of September 8th. So I don't know what my time is going to be like after until we have a director hired or something. So that's the disclaimer. I will do the best I can to attend, but 4 o'clock is just gonna be tough.
Thank you. Understood. We appreciate that. Dr. Ebony.
Put it in the chat.
Oh,
Hello.
Hi.
Second Tuesday should be fine. Fourth Tuesdays, I have a standing meeting with the OLCC, but second Tuesdays of the month should work pretty well for me, barring any other, staffing woes or issues.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, there are a variety of topics that are going to be covered or things that are going to be addressed. If you could go back to our slide deck. I'll let everyone take a look at some of the incredible things that are in front. Next slide. There we go. Here are the kinds of things to lean in on and look at. Supplemental environment assessment, highway cover design, project funding, the Ramsey Wheeler design recommendation, Clackamas Crossing, street cross-section design, community framework agreement, the highway covered workshops, the community framework agreement, final design option recommendation. So quite a bit to do for the next several weeks. Yes, sir.
Are they in order of priority? I would like to have a little bit more expansive understanding of what these areas represent in dollars. I'd like to see what is associated with those in dollars. And if possible, to see what NACE codes are involved in that, what opportunities for employment, growth, development, education, whatever. I mean, we need to have a little bit more expansive idea about what those updates mean and what those dollars really represent as it relates to our community.
Could everyone hear Mr. Posey? Everyone online?
Yes, we can hear. It's a little muffled though, but I'm leaning in.
Thank you.
So, and the other piece relative to that is how does this dovetail with ODOT's affirmative action, their civil rights program, and how does that dovetail with their plan to increase participation of people who look like me in the process?
Erica McAlpin, did you want to respond to that at all? Did you hear it? You're muted.
Sorry, I did hear the question. And at the next meeting, I am prepared to present some more information on what my office is doing to do exactly that, as well as dollars that have been awarded previously per the last conversation that Mr. Posey and I had at the last HAAB meeting. So we can get that on the agenda for the next meeting.
Want to make sure that those numbers are disaggregated and not the typical combined and all that other stuff, MB and all that other stuff, disaggregate the numbers so we can see what's really going on.
Understood?
Excellent. Keith,
My question was, are these in a list of priorities or is it just a list?
is this a list of priorities or just a list? Who has that answer?
It is the list, the comprehensive list of what we're working on, and a lot of these are being worked on simultaneously.
Okay, I guess what I'm getting at is, in other words, number one on the list is no more important than number 7.
Well, in terms of schedule, it is the most important thing, but everything has importance to advance. Okay, so
So what I'm asking is then, you know, if the list makes sense to us, it has to be either in sequence of construction or how the process works, or it has to be in prioritized by, as Mr. Post said, dollars and cents, or where, you know, where does it come in the hierarchy?
oh, okay, so I would like to say that as you advance these large and complicated projects to construction, first thing we have to do is we have to clear NEPA and have the federal government say, okay, this is a good project, we're willing to back it. The next thing is to be done with our design, at least our design of the early work packages, stuff that we can separate out and start work on while we're finishing the more complex designs. And then after that, it is getting then there's the buy utilities by right of way, or move utilities by right of way. And then after that, it is getting those construction dollars put in to the proper, what we refer to as buckets, you know, and then we're really ready to start turning dirt, moving dirt.
I get that, but this still has to be sequential. It's got to be in some order, you know. You can't,
These are all pre-construction
I get
activities.
that.
Okay.
I get that, but are you gonna attack them all at once?
Actually, we're well advanced on bullet number 1, highway cover design process. The city and ODOT and the HAAB is going to be coming into that also, and we are going to start advancing that because that's easily 12-month, maybe even longer process, and we need to have that work done so that we know literally where the buildings are to be bolted onto the cover. Okay.
I think what he's looking for is a PERT chart of when those activities scheduled over time will look like in a graphic form so we can see that.
Well, we will get that for you. We have a complex schedule where we can hit this, give you a Gantt chart of those, and with those being focused on it. Okay.
And the reason for that, thank you, James. The reason for that is because Otherwise, we look at this and we say, oh, well, this has got to be done next week.
Yeah.
And now
Understood.
we're inundated, we gotta make a quick decision, and I don't want that to happen in this process. We gotta make sure that we have time to think about things and be able to, let it marinate for a minute before we have to come back with some kind of decision or recommendation. That's
Okay,
the only proper way to handle it. to me.
we can do that.
Mr. Modica.
Yeah, I think we all got there, and you mentioned a Gantt chart, but what would be really helpful for some of us is if you have the project management spreadsheet, it's like as you're have these tasks assigned internally and where that is, and when you're awaiting some type of discussion or decision on our behalf, that would be very helpful, more than just bars with color, right? I mean, what's the detail that we really, I think, seek to know.
Okay,
Thank you.
we can insert that in.
Thank you. Caitlin.
I think it pretty much got covered, but I do think that could be really helpful, like crosswalking these topics with that last slide of when the meetings are and the workshops are, so everyone can know what's gonna be talked about when, and then with the rationale of why, what that feeds into in terms of milestones. And possibly to Mr. Posey's point too, if anything else that is going into those milestones that isn't on that list, or if there is anything that's not on that list, just making sure that there's an understanding of how that all comes together.
Yeah.
At each milestone.
Yeah, I think we can do that.
Excellent comments. Let's go to our next slide. Back to you, Ms. McCown.
Thank you. So I want to provide an update on some recent project tours, or a recent project tour that took place on August the 8th. The Urban Mobility Office led an urban mobility strategy project tour with Senator Lou Frederick and Senator Nancy Nathanson, the co-chairs of the recently formed Special Subcommittee on Transportation Planning. The tour included an overview of the toll program, as well as the I-205 Abernathy Bridge construction project and Rose Quarter. The Rose Quarter project had 45 minutes with them and focused on orienting the committee co-chairs to the project, what the project includes, and how community engagement and the independent highway cover assessment process supported us getting to the design that we have today. They were taking the information in and had some questions about the progression of the highway cover design. We also shared the design refinements, specifically the ramp relocation and Clackamas Bike Ped Bridge.
Thank you, Ms. McCown. On the 14th of August, ODOT and Rose Quarter project leadership had a significant opportunity to meet with the Federal Highway Administrator, Shailen Bhatt. He was given a tour of the project area, led and organized by the City of Portland in coordination with the HAAB and HAAB Trust. We appreciate the city's partnership and collaboration in being a part of that discussion. Mr. Bhatt learned about the role the project can play in preparing in addressing harms done to the historic Albina community and ODOT's commitment to the community and to make safety and operational improvements in the area. So those are the updates on what's happened regarding tours. We're going to open up for questions for everything you've heard in just a moment. Before we do that, let me make you aware of an opportunity to engage. It is short timing. You will be receiving an email about this opportunity after tonight's meeting. Metro's 2023 Regional Transportation Plan, which has the Rose Quarter project listed. There's an opportunity to give comment if you're interested. During the comment period, Metro Council is asking for public review and comment on the plan's draft policies, draft strategy for high capacity transit, and the projects recommended by transportation agencies to address the region's significant and growing transportation needs. You'll be getting an email, as I said. So if you want to weigh in about the project, you can do so. The deadline is this Friday, close of business. So any comments or questions about what we have covered? So far, we've kind of done some. I want to give an opportunity before we move forward. All right. Any from our HAAB members who are hybrid? Excellent. We're gonna go to Carrie. Carrie, you got some information for us, sir.
I do. I'll be presenting the design update where we are currently. So can we go ahead and share the next slide? And the next one. Okay, I think a lot of the HAAB members have seen this possibly individually and or in small groups, but we wanted to bring this forward in a regular HAAB board meeting. And what this is where we are today. And it addresses questions like, what are we working on with the supplemental environmental assessment, the design refinement? So over the period of probably the last 6 months or so, we've been working with the community. The HAAB has weighed in on this. We have the flyover. Can you give us a little trace of where that is? Now, what that flyover is, recall the hybrid tree was both the eastbound, southbound off-ramp. If you wanted to go east on Weidler, you would have to pass through Williams and right next door to Moderna Lofts, and then might make a right-hand turn and enter what we refer to as the box of some fairly heavy traffic congestion. City came to us with this plan, and it's a great plan, which is basically we take one of the two southbound off ramps and we send it up and over and drop it onto Weidler directly east of where this project is. So that lines vehicle traffic up on without having to go through Williams and the more local street. Williams being a more local oriented street as compared to Weidler. Okay. So the next refinement, if I can, is the reintroduction of the Clackamas Crossing, bike path crossing. And that is right there. And you see that it comes to a triangle there across from Moda, and that's currently a ski park area. Now, one of the things we also added there was a span from the cover on Weidler and tied into this bike path crossing, and it's going to be an elevated crossing what we recall the Starfish intersection that was problematic and so forth. Okay. And then I want to also point out what is currently being worked on right now is where the westbound I-5 traffic goes after it leaves the freeway. Right now, our new document has both Wheeler and Ramsey as options to drive westbound. That's what's being put into MIPA and will be carried forward. We need to refine that down to one option, obviously, sending traffic either to Wheeler or to Ramsey. All right, let's go ahead with the next slide. And okay, so all of this work that we did comes about because of public comment from, and I think it was back from November all the way to about January 4th or 5th when we were accepting public comments on the design refinement. So adding that flyover ramp took 2/3 of the traffic out of what will be the future Weidler Broadway cover area. Okay. Again, provides the east-west bicycle pedestrian crossing over I-5, and again, and it also provides that from Weidler to the second floor of the Motor Center, an elevated protected pedestrian path. Okay, yeah, and with that, you're getting safer bike and ped crossings, shorter distances and less traffic through the congested area of Widler, Village, Broadway. Okay, to go ahead and go to the next slide. So the next steps are that we're update, like we talked about before, we will give a better schedule than just bullet points. Updating the supplemental environmental assessment. We're expecting that that's going to be turned into the feds mid-October-ish. We're hoping for the Federal Highway Administration to give us their opinion on that sometime in early 24, open February, might slide in March. It's always good to hope. And one of the elements that we're working on is advancing the community framework agreement, which is working with the city planning bureau to start the process of what is going, what the zoning, all of the technical elements that putting, more than just putting buildings on cover, but it's all of the, I guess, what would you want to say?
The planning for the
Thank you.
paper, the streets, where's that whole area look like? How does it connect with the adjacent area? What's gonna be on top of it? Yeah, just start that conversation.
What goes on top, more than just buildings. All right, and next, okay, so question.
So the rendition you showed, with some adjustments, I mean, that's kind of okay, but is there any way that there could be a,
Could you go back to slide 13 like that?
not necessarily a map, but like a depiction of what the flyover look like? Because we've gone from
All
very clean look, maybe one flyover, to now there's two additional and a ramp. What would the rendition of that look like?
Okay, in that circle, there is a 3D sketch of that, but I agree with you, that does not show up very well. Okay,
I think that would be helpful.
we will get you something better. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Something better like a rendering.
That's what I'm looking for.
You know, it's gonna be this, but larger
And
and,
Kevin's asking for is a model. We want to be able to look at a model of that
okay,
and be able to look at it with the colors and everything, that's all well and good. But be able to see exactly what's, and then looking at a flat piece of paper.
okay, but I'll have to see if we can get a.
You're not gonna want to do that.
What's that?
Yeah. You need to do that.
I hear you.
Didn't we already have one? Is the bird nest or spider nest?
The 3D, the digital.
Yeah, I feel we do too.
Yeah.
To me, it's still a digital.
I think that
Rather
was
than
shared at the last design collaboration,
Okay.
but, yeah, like,
But with some depth.
yeah.
Yeah, it has, yeah, multi-dimensional. And now, but answer this for me, are we still in that cluster screw up in the Rose Quarter? There, or is that one still on the table, or in this drawing, is that what this is still depicting, or did we get that all worked out?
Okay, what are you thinking the screw up?
For the spider web, or
Right, the starfish?
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, that's okay. And, okay, so depending on your deal with this, it would be, you know, I feel we have, that's why we added that span from Widler to the existing Clackamas Crossing Bridge to elevate the pedestrians that want to get to the Moda Center, and so that they do not have to interface with auto traffic.
Right,
Okay.
but the players have a problem.
They do.
Did they work through that problem, or is that problem still on the table?
That problem is still on the table. But honestly, that doesn't preclude us from building a structure up to their front door.
Well, I guess Chris ain't there no more, so I guess it's not an issue.
So,
Mr. Posey? Yes.
Yeah, I'm not, I understand this technical rendition of where we're trying to go, but when you mentioned earlier, Metro, maybe I'm the only one sitting around the table with this. I don't see the integration of Metro, the county, and some of the other issues that we're faced with in our community. Homelessness, we're the #1 state in the nation for homelessness. And I'm not seeing nobody around the table talking about the homelessness situation and how this fares into the direction we're not going. I know you all at ODOT are builders, you're not social service people, but the discussion has to be had about how screwed up our community is. Have you guys driven around lately and see, it's like you paving over these people out there that's on the ramps and stuff going down the street. So is there anybody talking about that integration of what we're addressing that particular issue and stuff? Metro, the county, where are they? Good question.
that is, and that's a little beyond me. We really, in focusing on the design elements of this project, I hear what you're saying, and I drive in this area too, and I walk around and I see this. And what I do know, I guess, is that the governor is convening a task force, but that's like whole other areas.
That's what they're saying. So, but
Yeah,
just for some
okay,
clarity, maybe visual. If you go down the interstate and turn right, go 4 blocks to Tillamook freeway is, and those pillars. In the community, they call the Tillamook Caves, because people have tunneled into the side of the hill.
Oh my God.
And they're living under the freeway. So will this project mitigate that? Or have you all from ODOT, you can tour that to see what you're going to be up against as the work you're doing this?
Great question.
I can look into that. I do know that our region maintenance.
Yeah, this is gonna be an engineering deal. I mean,
Okay,
it's very tough.
okay, all
Perfect.
right,
Make sure that that's a topic that comes back.
okay.
Thank you.
And or whatever other mitigating barriers, obstacles, or others. I'm sure there's a whole cluster of them. And I guess somewhere, I guess we need to sit down and look at it through the angle of the human need and element in the district in relationship to the project. I'm sure that there's a multitude of things that we're missing. When it comes to the social aspect or the social service need of the community in reference to Maslow or any other thing. So that should be a side conversation. I would assume somewhere along the line there, looking at the human element, the need of the human element, other than the construction element that's involved in this. So I don't know how we're gonna pitch that. How that's gonna work alongside the project, but
Yeah, it's a great call out. It seems like this is one of those coordinated efforts, as you said, county, metro, city, state. It seems like it's something that has to be thought through. So great pitch for something to be covered. We're going to move forward in our meeting tonight. Thanks, Carrie, for the presentation. And we've got your marching orders and some things you're going to come back with.
Yep.
So that we can continue to do the work that needs to be done appropriately. A good segue into our next portion of the meeting tonight, and that's to talk about reconnecting communities and neighborhoods grant. We have Mike Baker here with us. Mike, you can kind of remind us, give us some context, and then tell us about the opportunity.
Great.
Thank you.
I'll start a little bit with where we've been last year and where we're going. Last year, this project submitted to a Reconnecting Communities grant. one of 435 that was submitted around the country. Of those 435 submissions, 99 made its way to the Secretary of Transportation's desk. And of those, 45 were selected. So about 10% of all asks got an award. City and ABT were fortunate to receive a planning grant, one of those 45. Rose Quarter did not receive an award last year. What we did receive is some feedback from the U.S. Department of Transportation saying that we were a very highly rated grant and strong encouragement from the DOT to resubmit. They gave us a little bit of feedback on some things to tune up and refine to make it even stronger this year, and we're in the process of doing that. Last year, there was $145 million available to compete for. This year, there's $3.4 billion. So let me restate that. 145 million last year, 3.4 billion this year. So the pie has gotten considerably bigger because there's an additional pot of money this year that wasn't available last year. It's called the Neighborhood Access and Equity Grant. So this year you have reconnecting communities and neighborhood access and equity all in one program, pot of money, 3.4 billion. So we're in the process of working on a grant. The deadline for submitting that is September 28th. So we are, the fur is flying, so to speak. We have, this project is located in 2 census tracts that meet a designation as being either disadvantaged or underserved. Because of that, because of the socioeconomic and demographic factors that create a designation like that, this project is not required to come up with any matching dollars. So ODOT has to put up $0 to ask for a significant ask under this program. It's a very unique opportunity. Usually government has to put up matching dollars, and then it can ask for about half, and they can ask for about half, and they have to put up the other half of the dollars. So keep that in mind. There is no maximum as to what we can ask for, and the minimum award is 5 million. So the worst we could do if we're awarded something is 5 million, but there is no maximum ask. There's no penalty for a maximum ask, but we need to figure out what we're going to ask for. Applications that show a strong regional partnership will do better. We heard that from the DOT. So we have to not only show that in how we write the grant, but we have to be that and present that, I think, through our avenues, through our delegations, and just how we show support letters. Thank you to the HAAB for providing a support letter last year. We're going to be asking for another one this year. If we're awarded a grant, even $1, of course, we want more than that. We are considered a highly rated project nationally if we were to seek funding in any other grant program through Mega, Infra, RAISE, or any other competitive grant program. I think of it like a fast pass ticket at Disneyland. If you get an RCN award, which is what we're going for, you get to move to the front line. So there's it's a double whammy. Not only you get money, but you get a preference, you get an advantage if you seek other dollars through other grant applications elsewhere. So it's important, and we're putting our best foot forward. We expect the grants to be announced by spring of next year. So again, we're due on the 28th, awarded announcements 24th, spring of 24. There are 7 criteria ranging from equity, environmental justice, to community engagement, to workforce development. We feel this project scores very, very well and aligns very, very strongly with each of those 7 criteria. So we think that the quality and the strength of the content that the DOT said we had last year is going to carry over very well into this year's grant application. Any questions on any of that background? Yeah.
Can we get to see at least a draft of your narrative?
You got it.
Since you're asking for a letter of support.
That only seems fair to me. So yes.
Thank you.
Next slide. Oh, was there not a should have a slide in there with some dollar values?
Oh, my.
Go to the next one. Okay. There we go. Okay, so go back one. I'm not going to re-go through this because Carrie just oriented you to it. But what I want to say is that with virtue of the highway cover and how it reconnects east and west of the community, and not only allows for better, safer circulation, but really creates a pathway for future development access down the river. enhanced safety for biking, walking, rolling, auto use as well, transit, the bike ped only bridge, which creates some interesting opportunities if that were to get built while the cover is under construction, because then you'd have this new, crossing of the freeway. Every element of this project scores exceedingly well in the grant criteria. So just wanted to reinforce that. Next. So the decision in front of us is, what are we going to ask for? What amount of money do we want to put forward in this grant? So starting at the very top, and this is color coded to the map that you just saw, working from left to right at the top, takes $50 million to complete the design of this project. Beyond the funding that's currently available to this project. So at a minimum, just to finish designing the project, we need 50 million. In addition to that, we need 80 for right-of-way acquisition to buy the property that's needed to build the project. In addition to that, in purple, 500 million to build the highway cover. In addition, another 100 million for the local street improvements on and around the cover. 120 million in green for the Clackamas Bike Ped crossing. In salmon color, 60 million for that flyover ramp that Carrie talked about, that would take the southbound ramp and let it fly over to the east instead of continuing to the west. And then finally, 120 million for the freeway elements, which would be the north and south auxiliary lanes that would allow for safer movement and weaving of traffic on the freeway. So in total, an option, not the option, but an option would be to ask for $1.03 billion under this grant application. And let's say we were awarded that amount. We still need, on top of that, anywhere from 312 to 712 million more dollars to complete the full funding of this project. So I don't want anybody to think that what we're asking for in the grant is for full funding, because it's not. The current price tag on the project that was provided in the urban mobility finance plan to the OTC is anywhere from 1.5 to 1.9 billion. That's the total project cost. So we could ask for $1 billion, or in the middle of the page, we could not ask for the price of the auxiliary lanes, and instead that becomes the discussion of future legislature to figure out where that money can come from, but instead we'll ask for 910 million. Or if we didn't include any funding for that flyover ramp, basically said anything for the freeway and the ramp, we're going to fund elsewhere. We're only going to ask for grant funding for things that are a bit more multimodal. That would bring the ask down to 850 million. So those are three options that have some logic to them. I think ODOT is prepared to back any of these and wanted to put the conversation to the HAAB to say, where do you feel you want to weigh in on this? What input or advice would you have to ODOT as to how we would configure the ask?
So for these little blocks.
Yeah.
Right, and we talked about the grant. Well, the multiple blocks there. You talked about potentially getting awarded partial grant. Would there be a potential for them to award us, just the 50 million to complete the design, just the 60 million to do the I-5 ramp location and flyover? Like, are each of those components able to be broken out and get funding if they were going to give us partial funding from the grant?
Absolutely. In fact, it's pretty common to not get what you ask for. But since you normally get some percentage of what you ask for, there's some logic to say, well, let's maybe ask bigger if we know we're not going to get the full thing that we're asking for. But if in their wisdom, the government came back and said, we're going to give you 200 million, we'd have to figure out how to apply that to this project. And really, it's just been the gap that has to be closed through a legislative package is bigger.
Well, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is from the perspective of the person who's evaluating the grant request. They're gonna look at this package. Are they gonna be able to see, hey, we can't give them 1 billion, but we can give them 200 million? Are they gonna be able to see, if we give them this, it'll apply to this, and this bit will get done? Like enough so they could say, hey, we're gonna give all this money to this project. This project's actually gonna get off the ground. It's not just gonna sit in a pot while the Oregon legislator figures the shit out.
Right. And the answer to that is yes, although I don't commonly I wouldn't commonly hear the DOT come back and say, we're gonna give you a certain amount of money, you must spend it on that block or that block. They're just gonna award an amount of money based on the merits of what we're asking for.
And then from the project itself, can these things be built separately, or which pieces have to be built together?
Well, you gotta build the highway cover in order to rebuild the local streets crossing over I-5, including the new Hancock connection and so forth. But the I-5, the Ped crossing could be built on its own. It doesn't have to touch or be integrated with a flyover. So there's some independence to some of these, but really the highway cover is the centerpiece upon which so many things are integrated.
Well, the city's gonna give us some information, so I'm gonna have us hold our questions until after we get some update from the city, and it may answer or may just create some more query. And so, hold on.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone, good space, seen many faces. This is Mike Saratella, the senior planner at PBOT, and I'll be walking through PBOT project that is going after this particular really once in a generation grant funding opportunity. Thanks, Mike, for going over that so well, hit all the major points. It's 5 years of the neighborhood access and equity grant being put into one moment, really this summer. It's the biggest kind of allocation for this type of money that's specifically focused on connections, highways, mitigating the impacts of transportation infrastructure on community, and as Mike mentioned, has a very specific and strong equity component as well. So it's in a position to make a request with zero local match from the city, and also based on all the work that has happened in this space and the line of vision and kind of in this area over the past several years, really sets us up with a clear direction of how we can show up as a city in this moment to bring resources into this area. And so when we read the funding opportunity from the feds, we were really excited to see the 0% match. And at that time, ODOT hadn't committed to going after construction funding for the Rose Quarter project for this grant. And we thought to ourselves, how can we show up and leverage this moment and make a strategic ask or a big project necessary to help kind of get things going. Something that would complement and extend the planned Rose Quarter projects and the local streets that would be built with that project, but truly reconnect, extend those benefits all the way to the Broadway bridgehead and all the way to the neighborhoods to the north and to the east, which were divided by this freeway when it was first built. And so we looked through our adopted plans, we looked through the Albina Vision Community Investment Plan, we thought about the Rose Quarter project, we tried to find something that lived at that nexus of of community priority and something that we knew we could deliver on our streets that had the technical and feasible kind of work that had already been done since we were on such a tight time. And we landed on the a project focused on Broadway Weather and surrounding neighborhood connections. And so as y'all know, Broadway and Weather is that primary connective tissue between the Albina waterfront area and the greater Albina community to the north and to the east. And it also, it spans that barrier of I-5, but it itself being the widest street in the central city of Portland, 96 feet curb to curb, 40 feet wider than MLK. In this section down here by the waterfront is a barrier for current and future residents accessing transportation, accessing the streetcar, the Rose Quarter Transit Center. And especially when we think about the future land use and development goals for this neighborhood, we want to make sure that that street is welcoming and human scale, comfortable for people to cross. Can I have the next slide? So we developed our project really focused on connecting 7th Avenue to the waterfront and also reimagining Larrabee and strengthening those connections to the north of Broadway, where Albina Vision has identified the PPS profit site and the Albina 1 development, which just had their kickoff on Sunday. So while also, so the principal investments that we're imagining really go from Wheeler down to the Broadway bridgehead, from Second Avenue to Seventh Avenue. And then focusing in that footprint of the Rose Quarter reconstruction area where the state will be rebuilding the streets. To kind of get it right there so that when that project is delivered. If I'm walking with my kid down from 7th and Broadway down to the waterfront park, down by the alignment, it'll feel like a coherent, consistent experience and really knit the neighborhoods together. Next slide. So the goal is really about redesigning Broadway to kind of restore it as that civic main street in the heart of the district. And by doing that, we transform one of the widest surface arterials that has lots of bike impeded and vehicle crashes into a much more safe and human scaled environment. And we see a lot of opportunities to honor the district's history through public art, urban design monumentation. There's a number of public rights of way, plazas, and spaces that we could partner with community-based organizations in the area, About Vision and other organizations that are active in the space to program and activate. And we, to your question last time I shared this concept, we did some looking at the NOFO specifically around contracting and being very intentional about not just what we build, but who we build, who we partner with, who we build it for, and thinking about that whole life cycle of workforce development and economic development. And we believe that we'll be able to pursue an alternative contracting method to bring in specific Black and minority contractors in this space. So I don't know how much time I have. I could go a little bit more into details, or we could talk about that during the Q&A. But we wanted to inform and share this strategic move that the city is making as a part of this grant opportunity. One important bit of information to share also is that the scope and scale of this project is much smaller than the ask that ODOT has outlined. We're targeting a grant scope between $25 and $30 million. So just to put that in context, and that's
Just excellent. Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
I think what we do is open it up for some Q&A, and I'm going to go first to our hybrid guests, members, partners, and see if there are any comments or questions from those who are remote from what the two mics just shared.
Lots of mics. Lots.
Don't drop them, Mike. I see no hands going up, so I did see a hand in the room. Go ahead, sir.
My question was to ODOT. It was, excuse me, it was about the budget. Does that include the widening of the highway? I wasn't.
Yeah, can we go back to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't hear the breakdown. I just heard about the caps, but I didn't hear much about the actual widening of the highways.
The 120 million.
Right.
Over there in orange is the freeway the reconstruction of the freeway underneath the cap.
Okay.
And now there's more to the auxiliary lanes, both north and south, tying into 84 and then 405. Those are in the early work packages.
So that green on all of them is that reconstruction.
The green 120 million is the Clackamas crossing.
The bicycle pedestrian.
The bicycle pedestrian.
Okay, so.
Okay, the
The
orange.
early work package construction dollars are not
in-
represented.
Not represented in here.
is that the 312 to 712 million?
That is correct.
It might be helpful. Are you able to break down the 500 in purple any further? Or just talk through what is represented in that
Okay,
cost?
so. Okay, we'll talk about the cover, $500 million. So what that represents, the cover is about 1,500 feet long. Spans from Weidler, south of Weidler up to past Flint. north of Flint. Now, it, you know, the cover, even though the cover is a bridge, it's just a very long bridge. So you have your substructure, you have your girders, and you have your deck. And that represents roughly $400 million in construction work itself. Now, when you build something that long, you have the requirement to have a fire suppression system and an evacuation system in that tunnel that you just built. And that actually represents about $100 million of that.
Thank you.
Okay,
So that doesn't improve the road, sorry,
it does not in
underneath the cap. I mean, you would have to make some road improvements up underneath there, wouldn't you? Or are
Right.
you just gonna do the girders? So you're just gonna do something that goes along as a wall and gonna hold that roof? Or are you gonna improve that foundation? You gotta go down a little bit on the road underneath there too, don't you?
You do, that's the $120 million.
Oh,
Okay,
so. that's
So
not
the upper,
Included in the five, in the
Right.
purple.
so if you look at the top line,
Oh, I understand the breakdown of the numbers, but it doesn't compute in my mind in construction.
okay,
Okay, so when I think about the types of structures you would have to place over a road, my understanding is you're still gonna have to go down a grade, because if you're gonna put height over the top, you still gotta go down some. And then to hold that structure up, you still need parallel beams on the side to hold that structure up. So that structure is gonna have to go down. So you're gonna have to do some mitigating on the road underneath that structure anyway.
right. We separated out the construction of the freeway underneath the cap because this grant is focused on reconnecting communities. There are other grants that are that freeway reconstruction better fits, like mega grants, raise, infra, okay? So it's, that's part of it.
that's good. Great comments. Mr. Post, sir?
Yeah, I'm still trying to get over our original plan to build this highway. I still have not gotten over the fact that, we didn't get to do what we did. We spent 3 or 4 years trying to put together a piece, and this is our second choice. So it's kind of feel like a stepchild coming into this piece that we're doing here. So I'm just putting that out there. But I want to be very clear that we're using these census tracts, which talks about poor people that disproportionately look like people like us. And what I don't want to have happen is for us to go front end with this thing using us again, because this is not the first time that they've used minority communities to get money that comes in that ultimately benefits everybody except people that look like me. Yeah, so I'm looking for something deeper than the brick and mortar. I'm looking for I don't know who's gonna write this grant, what the vision is going to be, but I'm looking for something to at least speaks to the idea of restorative justice economically for our community. And I ain't seen nothing like that yet coming out of anybody talking about what we're gonna do on this piece. So maybe it's premature for me to understand what you all are talking about, but this brick and mortar does not impress me, because what I see is us going, this movement being reran while we come in and build stuff that's going to benefit everybody except for people in our community. The widening of the highway, your piece is good. And, I have to bring to your attention that we don't have these NACE codes and these people who are going to benefit from that. But, Black people don't do nothing with steel. We don't have no gravel rock. We're coming in for the undercarriages of this stuff. There is no manufacturing for people to be able to benefit at a material level to make real profitability and build wealth out of this project. I'm looking for something that can help me understand, how do we use this once in a lifetime? Because it's what it is. It's a one-off. to leverage this beyond where we are right now, to build prosperity for people to live right now.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Dr. Wilkin? Yes, sir.
So for me,
And could you project so that the owl can pick you up?
I will do my best, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
I guess for me, it comes back to definition. So when we say reconnecting communities, what communities are we reconnecting? And how are we doing it from a restorative justice perspective? And so it seems like we use the term. But when it comes to the manifestation of reconnecting communities, what communities are we reconnecting? Because remember, most of the individuals that were in this community are out east. The other folks that were in this community are in Rose City Cemetery on 57 and Fremont, most of them. So for me, it comes back to definition. I think the second point, coming back to the human need, I think what would kind of be disappointing for me is if we're gonna take money from this project, divert it away from reconnecting communities to deal with a human need that the current government between the state, the city, and the county seemingly can't do anything about. They got money to do something about the human need right now. So are they gonna take into consideration doing something about the human need with the money that they already have versus diverting any money from this project to address the human need?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Don't know if anyone wanted to respond, but I think those are duly noted. That's fine.
Based off of, kind of the sentiment that I'm feeling off of you, I would say that would be our duty to define what reconnected communities means to us as we sit here to reconnect to our community.
And actually, honestly, it was a rhetorical question. Here's why. Because in the beginning, we did define.
Well, we need to continue.
No, listen to me, brother. We did define what we meant by reconnecting communities based on a restorative justice model. Reason why it was a rhetorical question because I want to hear from ODOT folks. Is this still the plan? Because for me, it has to be woven, not just talking about it from the beginning with an intent, but it has to be woven through every progression of this process. And so, again, what I want to know at some point, we don't have to get into it today, is how we defined it in the beginning.
Yeah, we should get into it today.
Is it still that today? Thanks, Dr. Will. I give you.
But I did understand that it was rhetorical. What I'm saying is, it is up to us to stand our ground right here, right now, in this day and age, to not only ask that question, but to see how do we enforce that. And our response was about enforcement.
And what I'm saying is, I don't want to enforce. I want to hear from those who have responsibility for the implementation of this project. Is this still in their purview and vision? Because if it's not, then we gotta have the discussion to get back to the intent.
We always gotta
restore justice with this process.
If it's not enforced, then they can say whatever they want to say.
No, I don't think you understand what I'm saying, right? It's not my job to enforce. What I'm saying is, we talked about this at the very beginning, restorative justice, how we were going to reconnect community. It's what Mr. Posey is saying around this project was supposed to primarily benefit Black folks. Yes, we understand it benefits all of those who are in this community today. But the reason why we talked about the restorative aspect of this project was because going all the way back prior to when I was born, there was some harm that was done to this community, and that's what we talked about very strongly and very heavily. So for me, when I don't hear it woven, every time we talk about this process, and restorative justice only comes up when we mention it, that draws for me a concern. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Because at the end of the day, if I have to keep reminding somebody about something, that becomes the problem, because I'm still very disturbed about Governor Kotek's decision. And now we're working overtime with a full court press, trying to come up with some ideas, plans, grant applications to get some money that obviously she put on hold. At the end of the day, that is the context of what I'm saying. How is it woven throughout this process every time we have a presentation? Dr. Holt, thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you,
Appreciate it. Appreciate your comment. Carrie, you wanted to respond.
Restorative justice is still the cornerstone of this project. And I'm sorry that we didn't lead off with it more in terms of our design updates, because we're getting into the nuts and bolts. We're talking about this next grant. I believe the ICA, if I remember right, it talked about the desire to build it, own it. There was like three major things: that build it, own it. I'm hearing what Mr. Posey is saying. I feel like Erica McAlpin is going to come back saying, this is what's going on with our minority hiring and DBE hiring. And you are making some very good points about how sometimes big agencies just lump it all together and say, thumbs up.
So let me just interrupt you just so we can really get it. I'm not just talking about a job here, a job there. Okay, I just want to say, I'm talking about building wealth and capacity in our community for real. I'm not talking, this is no joke for me. This is not, everybody wants to come here and say, oh, we're gonna get jobs, a little construction people, they'll get a little thing, we'll get a dump truck here. No.
Okay.
I'm talking about something fundamentally to change the structure of where we go, how our community is able to care for itself, how to build wealth and capacity in our community. And if I don't see that, I ain't gonna be happy. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Because this is the okie doke. This is the okie doke. This is the same old over again. This is why people don't trust ODOT. This is why we're going down the same road. I'm gonna be honest, I would rather not have a project than to fall for the okie doke. You all don't understand what I'm talking about when I say okie doke.
Oh, yeah, we do.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. 1 second right before Keith, I saw Erica McAlpin brought your camera on. I don't know if you wanted to weigh in with any comment here, and then we'll go to Keith, and then we'll.
I don't need to weigh in, Dr. Holt. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry.
I just I've heard Albina Vision talk about it here today as well. And oftentimes there's some confusion as to that should appease us. And that's not the case at all. That has nothing to do with what's going on here. We need to be clear about that. So Albina Vision doesn't even need to come up in any of our conversations here. Because otherwise it gets confused. Well, they got a bunch of money over here for the community, so that should be, and they should be happy with that. That's not the case. So we need to be clear about that.
Thank you very much. Pricing.
So I'm still, we talked about this application and the PBOT application about a week ago. And I'm still running into the same issue that I ran into at the last one, which is, even if we're looking at the smallest option, the 850, that's still asking for a quarter of all the money that they're going to be spreading around for the whole country. It seems like, okay, yeah, maybe we could pare it down to a smaller amount so we don't seem as ridiculous. But what it sounds like, and given the way the options are structured, that there's not a way to do some of these bits. Maybe we could do the bike and pedestrian bridge, but that the covers by themselves are the main key. It doesn't sound, unless we can do the ramp and the flyover by itself, that might make a lot of sense, you know, obviously the planning. But the thing that's bugging me is that I'm sitting here and I'm trying to think about this from the federal lens. And the ask is, hey, we want 25% of this money that's geared up to go to the whole country in an election year, in a state that's not in play, in a city that's the bluest and the least in play area of the state. We want all of that money to come here instead of going to Georgia, instead of going to Wisconsin, instead of going to Michigan. And, you know, a quarter, in the last one, you know, we talked about, they had 45 projects applied to the last one. If you had 45 projects applied to this one, the average amount would be $75 million. Okay, you can ask for more, but if you're asking for 10 times that, like it just seems ridiculous. Like this seems like the longest of long shots here still. And you know, I'm looking at these buckets. If you could chop all of these things up into different bits and ask for them all separately, it seems like there's different things you could pick out to say, hey, to come up with an application that looks like it makes sense in the context. But it just seems like we're asking for the feds to pay for a project that the state's not willing to commit any money to. I mean, we've taken the big $500 million chunk out of the middle of this project, and we're trying to get the feds to fill it up. And it just sounds stupid to me. And maybe I'm missing something, but I just don't understand why this is even something that's being considered. It just seems completely out in space.
So before we go further on that one, let me just do two things. One is we're at 5:30. We're at our appointed time. We had another meeting that's set. We're going to continue with this meeting and then we'll roll into the other one afterward because there is an ask on the table. And the ask on the table tonight is for the HAAB to weigh in saying which of these three proposals that you see are you recommending be responded to or go forward. So is everybody okay with that? Continue the process. I don't want to interrupt the discussion at the moment. So everyone who is online, we are going to continue with this discussion. We may table the charter recommendation to our next meeting, but we need to resolve this one. Mr. Madiga.
Dr. Holt, I think we're going to get to where you just referred to, but I wanted to weigh in on Bryce's concern. I think what may be getting missed is that it's going to carry through the whole project's process. ODOT whiffed, they accepted blame, going at this for financing in a different manner, with the understanding that regardless of what we receive, if we get off the table and approved, it puts us in a position for additional grant asks. Is that what I heard earlier?
Correct. That's correct.
So that's the logic for me, is that I understand it, and I'm still concerned as I was in the meeting when it was revealed that the presumed revenue stream was off the table. But intellectually, I accepted that ODOT, and as a member of the committee, I accepted that ODOT said, hey, you know what? This is our fault. We weren't transparent. We're asking you to listen to our explanation, and this is what we would like to do moving forward. I don't see another way forward than to go for funding initiatives as they present themselves, knowing that it's going to put us in a position for additional funding. As ridiculous as it may seem, right? I think we have to, if we're going to participate as a committee, make the decision and work as hard as we can to get the ear of those that influence, and as well as our government relations folks. Because that's where the decision's gonna be made, you know. I think if we pick and choose, I could pick out and say, why is 82nd Avenue as important? Right? I mean, I think that boat moved, but if you were a resident within that region, when the Mount Hood Freeway project was almost to the point of turning dirt, and then it was scuttled in exchange for light rail, you know, maybe people are upset about that. Maybe they're upset about the way 82nd Avenue was isolated. You know, maybe people are upset because it's a state highway and it was given to the city and now it's a priority. Is it more of a priority than this? For me, it is not. But I must say, I also agree with Mr. Posey, with Mr. Edwards. A dump truck, a track hoe, a scoop shovel, a brooming contract, 100 people hired out the labor hall. That's not economic development. That's steel. You know, Mr. Williams is gone. I don't know if there's a company that represents us that does steel. I do know the hotel motel industry will make a lot of money because steel workers will come from out of town. And those are the type of things that, you know, maybe no one at this table has a responsibility to even address it, but I think you must be mindful, right? Everyone is watching. And not to be polarizing, we live here. This doesn't work right, we live with it. Every single day, in every space we go into, and everyone that talks with us about what's going on here.
So with that, when I'm gonna push to, you can make your comment before, just like you've watched city council, when they go to the vote. And each of the council persons have the opportunity to express their perspective and then give their direction. I'm gonna ask us, based on the three that we see, what would your recommendation be? Fully understanding that what Mike indicated already is that they can look at it and say, we will award X amount of dollars, no matter what is asked for. So the determination could be, we will award 400 million or 120 million or whatever. But what would you recommend as the ask that is in front of us? Sometimes it's the long shot.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the Hail Mary. It's the end of the game. You got to throw the ball.
Well, and thank you for that direction, because post my statement, I vote aye 1.3.
1.3, thank you. And I will go around the room, Mr. Edwards, beginning with you.
Number one.
Number one, we have two for number one. Mr. Washington.
I say I say that 850,
So number three.
yeah.
Number three.
Mr. Dr. Holt, Erica Warren had
She has a comment in the chat.
Oh, should come in the chat. Wonderful.
She had asked, can the grant discussion continue in the next meeting?
How can the grant discussion continue?
Yeah, I think that would probably be a better place for it. But if they come out of it with a consensus of some kind.
We certainly could do that. It was my understanding, unless we want to end it, I have no issue with that at all. We can wrap this meeting and then come back with a report, since this is the public meeting. If we're going to work on it in the second meeting, which is not a public meeting.
So I'm sorry, Dr. Holt, I'm sorry for interrupting you. I will not be joining for the second meeting. So if there's going to be some kind of vote or something, I will not be there.
Yeah, well, we can get your thought before we do that. So we can go to the shared screen for those who are in the hybrid or the HAAB members. Yes, sir.
Do we have the capacity to a motion? Because with a month and a couple of days, I think it's incumbent upon us to make our vote tonight at this meeting right now.
I appreciate that. I think that, I don't know that there will be any impact on if it's done tonight, if it's done in this meeting or in our next.
I think it will time-wise,
Because either, if we come with the recommendation tonight
yes.
with what we do, I don't know that it matters if it's in this particular meeting or the next meeting, is what I'm saying.
With a month and a couple of days, I think I look towards the brightness of the grant.
Right, well, I'm saying that if the determination happens tonight, it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter if it's at 5:40 or 6:30.
Well, we'll all have members be, and
I'm gonna grab
observing
any other
meeting.
feedback from like, that's the concern, that's why I put it in the air. Yeah. Ms. Goodluck, do you have a perspective of 1, 2, or 3?
2.
2. Thank you. Is Ebony still with us? I
I
don't
believe
see her.
she's left.
Okay. Erica, did you want to weigh in, Ms. Warren? I see you're with us. Thank you for connecting.
I did not. Thank you for everyone. Just landed safely on the East Coast, but I can reach out to additional HAAB members this evening if necessary, if Ebony was on the line, to also get their recommendation.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I will just say that even if the people are giving their votes today, I think the grant writers, I'm sure they're professional grant writers, can begin the work. And when something is figured out as far as numbers can be inputted. You know, I've written grants before, I've responded to RFPs, and numbers can be inputted the day before. But the body, the essence of the grant can be started already. So.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you have members, let me know what your preference is. I don't know if we need an extended period of time. We've captured a number of perspectives in terms of votes already, so let's go. Sir,
I'm good to do it now. I don't know how anybody else feels, but I'm always concerned about the
yes, sir. So your
public meeting laws, but
your vote
my
will
vote is
be
number one.
number 1. Excellent. 1, 1, 1, and you were 3. Okay.
Can you read the slide?
Mr. Davis, clear? 1. Thank you. Mr. Posey.
I'm abstaining for this reason. If ODOT would have came in here with a strong narrative for restorative justice, I could in good conscience see the full context of where we're going. I think we're headed over the cliff with this because we're allowing ODOT once again to play us. I'm just gonna be straight up with you about it. They needed to, if they had real intention about trying to do the restorative justice, they would have come to this room with a restorative justice narrative outlining how they're going to build power and development in our community. I'm abstaining. I don't want none of them. I said that before, until they come with something that's going to assure us that they're going to follow through on what they said they're going to do.
Appreciate that, sir. That's
My bad. Mr. Posey brought me back to consensus. Thank you.
Which means
I sustain.
you abstain also, okay? Bryce.
You know, I feel the same way that James feels, but from a completely different perspective, in addition to the perspective that he's got. Because what I'm looking at is, it just, and again, maybe I just don't understand how these applications work, but it looks like there isn't really a project here. And that you're putting in an application that someone's gonna go, they don't have any real commitment to this. We'll just fund the project in Georgia, we'll fund the project in these other states instead. And if there was an option 4 that said, complete the design, right of way utilities, bike and pedestrian bridge, move the ramps and the flyover. And it was whatever that is, 300 million. That seems like an ambitious ask, given what we'd be asking for. That's still 10% of the bucket for the entire country. But it's ambitious, it's realistic, it's brought into the connecting communities pieces. for instance, moving the ramp relocation is big on reconnecting the community. But and there's ways that you can break it out and go, okay, we can fund this, we can fund that, we can fund this. But when we're asking for a quarter of all this money, like it feels like a con. Like it feels like we're trying to sign on to something so that ODOT can say, oh, see, we tried to get the money back that we moved to the Abernathy Bridge. With no real expectation that we actually get anywhere here. Like I think it's really important to get your foot in the door, try to get funding, especially when that can lead to more funding. But these asks just seem so unrealistic that it feels like all of these options are reducing our chance of getting that. And again, maybe you can explain how the grant funding works. Maybe you can explain how asking for so much could still get us in a way that'll change my mind on this. But it just seems like if I'm looking at this, I'm going, there's no project here. They're just trying to cover their ass.
Sir, what's your position?
I really want to say no. I really do. And I don't know. I don't think I could put my name on any of these options. If I had to pick one of these three options, I would say number 2, because it's the smallest. And I think the ramp relocation is key to reconnecting communities.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Wolf?
Sir.
What?
Yes, sir. Mr. Richard, yes.
If we don't get what we asked for, or let's say we're not selected at all, what position does that put us?
Excellent question. If we don't get what we're asking for, it's kind of 2. One is if you don't get what you're asking for, I think Mike addressed that earlier, but please do it again. And then if we get nothing, what does that do for the project? Who would have to take that?
What are our options if this isn't one of them?
Okay.
So my understanding is this ask is a leg of the stool. It's not all the money we need, but it's a significant contribution to what we need. But if we were to get $0 from this, then it's really a state issue. We're going back and collaborating with the legislature to talk about how do we weave Rose Quarter into a legislative package for the 25 session. At least that's my understanding. So if we can get some money from this grant and shrink what we need from the state, I think we're significantly better off in terms of getting the remainder of the funding that we need at a state level.
And if we get nothing?
That's what, even if we got nothing. Yeah.
And we already submitted a grant and were denied, but they gave us some great feedback on how to reposition ourselves for the next submission.
Yeah, they actually told us we were the top scoring grant in the country. But they didn't pick us, but we didn't get any money.
That was with House Bill 2017.
I'm sorry?
That was with the state funding in place.
Yes, he was, I think he was asking about the feedback we got from the DOT.
Yes, but that other part key too, because we had the funding in place, but they still didn't give us any money.
Yeah.
And now we don't have that money, we have to go after grant.
The other thing the DOT told us is we don't have to, at this point, to apply for this grant, we don't have to show a full funding plan. We don't have to have everything wrapped up with a bow on it, but we do have to show the possible ways that we could present a full funding plan. So legislative ask would be part of that. Any local partnerships could be part of that. I mean, we just have to talk about the things that could contribute. We don't have to have it all figured out by the time we submit in September.
So the questions that I see here. Are you saying that once money is awarded, you could reorder the sequence of the things to be done?
Yes, generally speaking, because grants, when they give it to you, are not specific for each one of those buckets. And Bryson is right. The first task we need to do is finish the design. Second task we need to do is move utilities by right of way. The PED bridge is independent of the highway cover structure.
So the depiction choices really just a broad stroke of brush.
We tried to present the building blocks of this project, how you could break up into pieces.
It is not fine, granular, detailed scope and seeking. So I still see room for our group here to vote affirmatively with a demand / understanding that we expect fine detail. Have some say in the sequence of how the work is going to proceed, that's going to make sense.
And based in what was communicated earlier in the meeting, I think you have the opportunity to hold Erica McAlpin and others' feet to the fire who've promised to answer what your inquiry has been around how those areas are being addressed.
I just wanted to say that in the last meeting I was in, and everybody's going to overlook this thing, is that we're on a political clock.
Truth.
Project.
Truth.
And the dude that was in, I don't remember his name, said the only reason why we're doing this is because the Democrats need to get this out the door.
Because there's a concern that potentially the next legislation, the next group will not.
We don't get to that. So these decisions and all the shenanigans about this, so how we got to be this and do that, is all about a political decision. As far as I'm concerned, I could be wrong. I don't see Merkley or Wyden, or I don't see nobody else in this thing who are working behind the scenes to get us across the door with this project. Buttigieg and all the rest of them up there. This is a political decision. And they playing us again, as far as I'm concerned. We have to make a decision about this process right now, get it out the door. And I mean, I'm just hoping that you all will understand what we're doing here. Why wouldn't you come to a table that gives us something to hold our hats on about restorative justice? Why would y'all not do that? Why would y'all come to the table with this thing like this, as if we don't know what's going on here? That's my problem with this project, is let's be straight with one another for once in a while. Let's just talk about this. You get me? Y'all understand what I'm talking about? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think we're very clear. I think we're very clear.
So, Dr. Bull, I mean, I just get the sense that there's room for us to come through with consensus.
Yes.
From this group and who is online virtually. And then again, we have a demand and an expectation, one, that Dr. McAlpine comes and satisfies that thirst and demand that we have for where's the restorative justice plan? What is it? Have we had anything to say about it? You know, what is that process? Is it going to be separate than the rocks and the dirt? The other piece, again, is the granular information, the expectation that we would be agreeing on the scope and sequence of the work, right? As Brother Bryson pointed out, it does make sense, but I see that this broad paintbrush has been applied to the graphic shown so that we have a sense of, hey, these are the amount buckets that are going to get us from one end to the other. And it seems apparent there's still some choices to be made if funding is awarded.
Well, let me do this.
I certainly encourage all of us. Let's make an affirmative vote. Let's trust our own process.
Yeah, we're going to circle back around on that moment. We are at just about 25 minutes beyond our meeting time. So for the sake of those who joined us tonight, let me say thank you very much for your time, your energy, and your effort. We appreciate you, everyone online. The next meeting, can we get that slide, please? Our next gathered moment.
Thank you.
think we have a
The
projected.
next steps.
Right, I'm trying to get to the next meeting. I'm trying to get. The next time we gather, so.
Is there a next step, Shelley?
Didn't have anything done.
Okay, I'm looking for the moment. I do not have that in my notes either. But we will make everyone aware of when our next scheduled meeting will be for us to gather in this space. Again, thanks everyone for joining online. We appreciate your time. Please send your comments, your feedback. You have the emails there. Have an excellent evening. We'll talk soon. Kill the live stream. Thank you very much. We're not done with our discussion though. So our meeting is not ended. I just wanted to end